In this world, the line between the weak and the strong is absolute. To win, one must become powerful. Wealth and glory are privileges granted only to those with strength. The rule is simple: crush those above you with power and take everything they have. This brutal reality is brought to the world in an ultra-violent fighting show on Netflix. In a quiet classroom, a student named Camino is startled as his earphones are suddenly ripped from his ears. A group of bullies surrounds him, with one holding his phone. They remind him that cell phones are banned at school. Camino looks up in panic, pleading for them to give it back. The bully holding the device just smirks, telling the young man that there's no way he's getting it back, and these guys are nothing but scum who prey on the weak and suck up to anyone stronger than them. And the student explains that he worked part-time to buy the phone and promises not to watch it anymore, begging for its return. But the bully grabs him by the hair, drooling as he cruelly denies the desperate request. He smugly states that breaking school rules is a serious crime, turning to someone named Sakata for agreement. Just then, another hand intercepts the phone, taking it from the bully's grasp. A calm blonde-haired student now holds the device, casually asking what this toy is. This is Sakata Toshiro, a powerful figure whose stats for intelligence, popularity, and strength are all high. He has both intelligence and immense physical strength, making him a formidable presence in the school. As the son of a famous company president, he controls everything with money, power, and violence. Without a second thought, the powerful student crushes the phone in his hand, much to Camino's shock. He then carelessly tosses the broken device aside, remarking that it really was just a toy. Camino quickly picks it up, relieved that it still works despite the cracked screen, sighing that it cost him 10,000 yen used. Sakata calmly looks at his finger, noticing a small drop of blood from where he crushed the phone, and so his lackeys immediately gather around him in a panic, pointing out that he's bleeding. The lead bully turns his attention back to Camino, who is still on the floor, and angrily demands an apology. And so the group looms over the young man, shouting that it's his fault their leader cut his hand. And so Camino looks up completely bewildered and nervously asks why he should have to apologize for that. The bullies just laugh and clap mockingly, continuing their chant for him to apologize. The entire classroom seems to echo with their relentless and unfair demands. Under the intense pressure, Camino bites his lip, his expression a mix of fear and frustration. And so a memory surfaces of a bearded man questioning him after he claimed there was no way he could have known something. The man then asks how, after being bullied so much, he wouldn't know what to expect. The image of a powerful flying kick flashes through his mind, a movie's likely seen from his opponent. He recalls his training, practicing a front kick while his mentor tells him he's doing it right. The memory of his master's intense gaze appears as he tells him it is time to go. The young man now understands the secret to turning things around. Back in the present, Sato walks toward him with a menacing aura, asking what the floor licker just said. But this time, Camino stands up to face him, declaring he'll say it as many times as he wants. He calls Sakato a coward for acting like a king only to be deaf when he is alone. The powerful student's face twists in rage as he glares down, calling Camino a kimoner. The other students watch in shock, whispering to each other that this is bad and that the boy is dead for sure. One of them trembles, recalling a rumor that Sakata beat up the boxing club's ace and is certain Camino is about to die. The powerful student menacingly asks his opponent if he is ready for what is about to happen. Camino's eyes widen in shock and anticipation as he braces for the inevitable attack. He watches as Sakata draws back his leg, a purple aura flaring around him as he prepares the kick. The blonde student then unleashes a swift and powerful high kick, aiming to end the fight quickly. Camino stares, frozen for a second, as the attack he predicted comes flying toward him. He recalls his training, remembering the lesson about reading an enraged opponent's first move, and just in time, he throws himself to the side with all his might, narrowly dodging the powerful strike. Sakata's eyes widen in surprise as his foot connects with nothing but empty air. Camino steadies himself, his expression focused after successfully evading the initial assault. The bullies who were watching from the side are completely stunned, realizing he actually dodged the attack. Seizing the opening, the young man immediately moves to launch a counterattack. He remembers his master's voice instructing him to slam his own kick and to turn the situation around. In a past memory, a younger version of himself nervously asks his mentor what he should do. His bearded teacher simply looks back at him with a serious, silent gaze. The young disciple once complained that fighting like this was not fair, but his mentor had told him that this was not a match, it was a real, no-rules fight. Back in the present, his master's voice urges him to use the bully kid's one-hit-kill move. With perfect timing, he lands a swift and brutal kick directly his opponent's groin. Sakata's face contorts in pure agony, his eyes rolling into the back of his head from the shock and pain. The seemingly invincible student collapses to the floor, completely taken down by a single, perfectly aimed strike. Camino's face is frozen in a state of utter shock, his mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. A memory flashes in his mind of him standing victoriously over a bowing Sakata, asking if he had had enough. But that was just a daydream. The harsh reality is that he is the one on his knees, apologizing. Sakata smirks, telling him that if he is going to apologize, he should do the usual thing. The young man's face drains of color as he begs his tormentor, pleading for anything but that. He feels trapped in darkness, surrounded by judging eyes that mock his powerlessness. And defeated, he presses his hands and forehead to the floor in a deep, humiliating bow. He is then forced to lick the filthy ground as part of the degrading ritual. Lying flat on the floor, he continues to whisper his apology, his voice full of shame. The group of bullies erupts in laughter, cruelly mocking the sight of his floor licking. Sakata then pours a can of coffee over his head, telling him to stay there and lick for the rest of his life. The student feels how unreasonable this is, but he knows this is the grim reality he must endure. He pushes himself up, his face streaked with the dark liquid and his spirit completely crushed. Seeing a teacher at the door, he calls out his name, hoping for some kind of intervention, but the teacher just announces that class is starting and tells everyone to take their seats, ignoring the scene. Since the bully's parents own the school, not even the teachers can oppose his power. This school is not a place of learning but the Sakata Empire, ruled by one student. In his oppressor's eyes, he is less than an ant crawling on the ground, completely insignificant. He realizes he can never beat someone who was simply born rich and powerful. After the humiliating day, the dejected young man arrives at his humble apartment, announcing that he is home. Upon arriving home, Kamino is welcomed by his younger sister, who tells him their mother sent some money. The girl explains it was payday at her live-in job, and she used some of the money to buy nice flowers for their dad. He thanks his sister Chika and walks over to a small memorial shrine, noting that it will soon be 3 years. He quietly gazes at the framed photograph of his late father, a solemn look on his face. The young man thanks his sister for always taking care of the house, but she reminds him that he also works a part-time job. Later he sits at a table with his laptop, a rare smile on his face. Even his difficult life has one source of enjoyment. He's excited because tonight his favorite show is on again. The bloody carnival is about to begin. The program is about deciding the world's strongest fighter through a series of intense, no-rules battles. He watches completely engrossed as the show introduces a total of 500 contestants, and the competition's format allows lower-ranked fighters to challenge those in higher positions, creating constant tension. These ultra-violent battles are broadcast worldwide on Netflix, reaching an audience of 300 million viewers. He excitedly holds up his laptop, fully immersed in the spectacle known as fight rankings. His sister, busy with her homework nearby, simply notes that his obsession has started again. But there is a specific reason he gets so excited while watching the program: underdog victories. He loves seeing lower-ranked fighters challenge the champions in a system where winners monopolize all the rewards. Because they are desperate, life-or-death battles, unexpected upsets happen frequently. These upsets have the power to completely reverse a person's entire life in a single moment. And his personal enjoyment comes from capturing those incredible moments by sketching them in his notebook. He pours all his focus into drawing, bringing the dynamic fight scenes to life on the page. After a moment, he pauses his work, holding his pen with a look of quiet determination in his eyes. He stares intently at his laptop, a look of focused concentration on his face. And so among all the competitors in the fight rankings, there is one that he follows with special interest. His favorite fighter is Kongo Takeshi, a man who climbed to the highest position in Japanese history. With a fighting style that never retreated, he was known for causing many shocking upsets in the ring. The young man sighs with admiration, thinking about how incredibly cool his hero is. But at the peak of his popularity, right before a major title challenge, the celebrated fighter suddenly vanished. Back in the present, his art teacher announces to the class that today's theme is My Admiration. She encourages all the students to draw with free imagination, letting their creativity guide them. The student sits at his desk, realizing he has never deeply considered the idea of admiration before. He hesitates for a moment before picking up his pencil and starting a rough sketch on the blank paper. A moment later, his teacher quietly walks up behind him, her expression curious, and she calls out his name and tells him that what he is drawing is very well done. He looks up from his work, a little surprised by the unexpected praise. The drawing is a detailed sketch of fighter Kongo, capturing him in the middle of a powerful high kick. He later shows the drawing to the class as the teacher explains his feelings go beyond simple excitement. She gently pats his head and praises the picture again, causing him to blush. While another student works on his own drawing, Sakata watches the scene from his seat in the back. The powerful student holds his phone, his expression calm and unreadable as he observes the class. After school, the young artist walks home feeling proud of his work, clutching the drawing in his hand. Suddenly his walk is interrupted as a hand violently grabs his hair from behind, catching him by complete surprise. The bully from before grabs him from behind, dragging him into a dark alleyway as his friends watch. Without warning, the larger student kicks him hard, sending the young man flying into a pile of garbage. He looks up from the ground to see Sakata and his group standing over him, holding his precious drawing. The powerful student scoffs at the artwork, calling it ridiculous and mocking him for getting cocky over it. And so, desperate, the young artist pleads with them to give back his important drawing. and so Sakata feigns concern, asking if the drawing is important and saying he should have mentioned it sooner. He then pulls out a lighter and callously sets a corner of the paper on fire, a cruel smirk on his face. The young man can only watch in horror, letting out a scream as his hard work turns to ash. In a desperate move, he lunges forward, trying to snatch the burning paper away from his tormentor. As he manages to grab the corner of the paper, still desperately trying to save what's left of his artwork, and he frantically tries to pat out the flames with his bare hands, hoping to stop the fire from spreading. After a moment, he successfully extinguishes the flame, sighing in relief that the drawing is saved. But his relief is short-lived as a powerful fist suddenly smashes into the side of his face, and student stumbles back against the trash, holding his injured face as he looks up at his attacker. Sakata's face is contorted with rage, veins bulging on his neck as he furiously asks what he is doing. At their leader's command, the entire group of bullies swarms him, kicking and punching him relentlessly. Bruised and bleeding, the young man lies on the ground, wondering why he must endure this. It feels incredibly unfair that all this is happening just because of some guy who was born rich. He can only lie there, beaten and crying, his face swollen and bloody from the merciless assault. Standing over his broken form, Sakata coldly warns the floor licker never to get cocky again before they leave. But as the group begins to walk away, a weak hand reaches out and grabs Sakata's pant leg. And so, they turn around in annoyance as the student on the ground asks them to wait, earning him a curse from the leader. The powerful student's face twists into a mask of pure fury as he silently threatens to kill him. One of his lackeys then runs forward and delivers another vicious kick to the downed young man. However, the attack is cut short as the group's attention is suddenly drawn by an unexpected presence. The beaten student lies on the filthy ground, tears and blood streaming down his swollen face. A voice remarks that it is noisy around here as a hand firmly grabs one of the bullies by the shoulder. A man with long hair and a beard casually strolls into the alley, looking tired of the commotion, and he brushes his hair back, sighing as he wonders if all kids are this troublesome these days. So the stranger now stands before the group of students, his sudden appearance catching them off guard. Sakata scoffs, dismissing the man as a homeless person and contemptuously asking if he wants to die. The bearded man calmly warns the punk to watch his mouth, stating that even homeless people can be strong. From the ground, Kamino's eyes widen, a flicker of recognition passing through his beaten expression. He realizes with utter disbelief that this stranger is his idol, the legendary fighter Kongo. As the world fades to black, the last thought that crosses his mind is the word, delicious. He slowly drifts back to consciousness, lying in his own bed, still thinking about something delicious. He sits up to find his hero feeding him, who cheerfully remarks on how badly he was beaten up. The student recognizes that voice immediately, pointing a shaky finger as he confirms it is fighter Kongo. Still completely bewildered, he asks why the fighter is at his house. Kongo simply explains his address was on his student ID, and with his idol right in front of him, the injured young man struggles to grasp the surreal situation he's in. While eating, Kongo cheerfully explains that he knocked down one of the bullies, causing the rest to run away. He then turns to the young man and seriously asks if those guys bully him like that all the time. The student just looks away, his silence and bruised face a clear answer to the fighter's question. The man's attention then shifts to the savage drawing, recognizing himself in his younger days, and he praises the artwork, and the young artist shyly confirms that he was the one who drew it, and the fighter compliments his skill and asks if he has any other drawings to show him. The young man pulls out several sketchbooks, each one filled with detailed drawings of various fighters in action, and so Kongo is impressed by the incredible amount of artwork, but the student reveals there are even more inside his room. The room is completely filled with massive stacks of paper, covered from floor to ceiling in his drawings. The fighter stands in the doorway, utterly speechless at the sight of the overwhelming collection. He looks at the sheer volume of work, his expression a mix of shock and amazement. He asks if the young man drew all of this, and for what purpose he created such a massive collection. The student simply explains that he just liked drawing and, before he knew it, he had created all this. And the fighter looks at him for a long silent moment, a thoughtful expression on his face. Suddenly, he reaches out and begins to feel the young man's muscles, much to his surprise. He remarks that the kid has supple and good muscles, his touch firm and assessing. He then asks if the student has any experience with martial arts, to which he quickly denies. And holding up the drawing from earlier, the fighter tells him to try kicking just like in the picture. The young man is stunned, immediately protesting that something like that would be impossible for him. But the fighter insists, telling him to just try it while he watches, leaving the nervous student with no choice but to comply. And taking a deep breath, the young man prepares himself, facing his idol in the room filled with his art. He attempts a kick, but his form is clumsy and weak, lacking any real power or precision. He nervously asks if he did it correctly, but the fighter immediately tells him he is wrong and to watch closely. Kongo demonstrates the proper technique, explaining how to swing the arm and rotate the waist for maximum impact. And he then unleashes a flawless, powerful kick that sends a shockwave through the room, scattering the nearby papers. The student watches in complete awe, his eyes wide as he takes in the perfect execution of the move. He tries to process the advice, realizing this is a lesson from a true fighting genius. The fighter then gives him a crucial piece of advice, telling him not to think but to imagine. The young man looks up, intrigued and a little confused, as his hero tells him to visualize the move just like in his drawings. The instruction is simple yet profound. Imagine the kick exactly as he has drawn it countless times. He stands in the center of the room, surrounded by his artwork, and closes his eyes to concentrate. As he focuses, a spectral image of the powerful fighter appears behind him, a manifestation of his imagination. He visualizes every muscle, every movement, and every detail of the kick he has studied and drawn for so long. His eyes snap open, filled with a newfound clarity and a deep understanding of the technique. He nervously announces that he is ready to try again, his entire demeanor changed by the shift in his mindset. The experienced fighter watches him with an intense and focused gaze, waiting to see the result. The student then launches himself into the air, his body moving with a sudden burst of speed and power. He executes a perfect high kick, his form mirroring the very drawing he created, his foot flying toward his mentor. The fighter easily catches the kick just inches from his face, his hand stopping the powerful blow. He looks genuinely surprised, admitting that the kick was far better than he had imagined it would be. The student nervously asks his idol for his opinion on the kick he just performed. The fighter stares at him in silence for a long moment, his expression unreadable and intense. He then asks an unexpected question, wanting to know if the young man is familiar with a certain person. The man he is referring to is the Ice Emperor Marigold Rider, once called humanity's strongest fighter. Despite never having formal training, he possessed a remarkable artistic talent, much like the student. The fighter tells the kid that he seems unaware of his own potential. He then drops a bombshell, declaring that the young artist possesses the same talent as humanity's strongest. The student is completely stunned by this revelation, unable to comprehend the weight of the fighter's words. His hero then grabs him by the shirt, his expression suddenly fierce and determined. He tells the young man that he must be sick of being a weakling by now, and so with a firm grip on his shoulders, the fighter makes a stunning offer. He will teach him the bullied kid's one-hit kill. The student's eyes widen in shock and disbelief, trying to process the unbelievable opportunity. With a confident and slightly menacing grin, Kongo declares that it is time for the underdog revolution. The scene shifts back to the classroom, where Sakata angrily asks what his opponent just said to him. The powerful student glares down at him, his face a mask of rage and disbelief at the insult. But this time the bullied kid stands his ground, a strange and unsettling smile on his face. He smirks, teeth looking unnaturally sharp as he offers to repeat himself as many times as needed. He then confidently faces his tormentor, calling him a coward for acting like a king but being deaf when alone. Overwhelmed by fear and adrenaline, the student grabs his opponent, a crazed look in his eyes. He wonders if this underdog revolution will really be okay as he prepares to unleash his newfound power. The idea of an underdog revolution echoes as the scene shifts back to the humble apartment. Panicking, the student tells his hero there is no way he can do something so drastic, but the fighter just grabs him in a headlock, insisting that they should at least try it once. The young man struggles, protesting that someone like him could never succeed, and he does not even want to try. Ignoring his complaints, Kongo playfully swings him around before delivering a powerful kick to his rear. The student goes flying, landing painfully on the floor as his mentor demonstrates the move. The fighter stands over him, excitedly declaring it is time for the underdog revolution, but the student realizes this is not a discussion. He looks down at the floor, his expression filled with despair and self-doubt. The young man feels completely helpless, convinced that someone like him could never succeed. He explains that his opponent was born with everything, while he has nothing. He sees himself as poor, weak and talentless, a born weakling who cannot change his fate. He believes he is weak and must never oppose the strong, his low stats reflecting his powerlessness. In his eyes, his hero is a being of immense power, with maxed out stats in strength, popularity, and charisma. The student continues to list all the things he lacks, including wealth and status. But the fighter interrupts him, pointing a finger and telling him to listen closely. He explains that the words the young man is speaking are not truths but a curse he has placed on himself. The student then asks why strong people are strong, to which Kongo has a simple answer, and he pounds his chest with his fist, explaining that it is because they believe, without a doubt, that they are strong. So the young man stammers, trying to argue that it is because someone like Fighter Kongo is just naturally strong. But the fighter reveals a shocking truth. Long ago he was also severely bullied, just like him. And so kneeling before the student, Kongo explains that when he was a kid, his height and weight were no different than his. He recalls his past self, a shy boy from a poor background who had never even been in a fight. And so the young man is stunned to hear this, but the fighter confirms with a grin that it is all true. In a flashback, a younger Kongo is shown being relentlessly bullied every single day. So his tormentors would humiliate him constantly, treating him with absolute cruelty. The abuse was so severe that he often found himself beaten on the floor, wishing he could just die. But one day, everything changed when he was walking home, and so, he witnessed his bullies turning their attention from him and starting to attack a member of his family. One of the thugs brutally kicks the defenseless girl, sending her to the ground in pain. In that single horrifying moment, something inside the young Congo finally snapped. So before he even knew what was happening, he was throwing punches, fighting back with a desperate fury. Back in the present, the fighter smirks as he recalls the outcome of that first fight. The flashback shows that despite his courage, he was ultimately beaten to a pulp by the larger group, and the student looks at his hero in disbelief, unable to imagine the legendary fighter being defeated so easily. But Congo explains that was the moment his life truly began, the day he stood up and chose to become stronger. The young man is still trying to process the incredible story that his idol was once a bullied kid, and he finds it unbelievable, but his mentor just gives him a firm pat on the back, and the fighter holds his shoulders, his expression serious as he explains the meaning behind his story. The student looks up, beginning to understand the incredible implication of his hero's past. And to drive the point home, Congo delivers another powerful kick, demonstrating the potential that lies dormant within him. The student is sent flying back against the door, his body trembling from the force of the kick, and his hero leans in close, his voice filled with conviction as he tells him that he can fight too. The young man is still in shock, struggling to process the powerful words of encouragement, and the fighter then explains that the kid has a wonderful, unique talent that he has yet to understand. He gives this special talent a name, calling it reproduction power. The student repeats the name, his expression a mix of confusion and wonder as he tries to grasp its meaning, and his mentor explains that he can reproduce the images in his head into drawings with incredible accuracy. And just as he can reproduce those images on paper, he can also reproduce them with his own body. The flawless kick he performed earlier was the ultimate proof of this incredible, latent ability. So the fighter gestures to the mountains of notebooks, calling them an amazing testament to his student's talent. He then pokes the young man in the chest, firmly telling him that he is not weak. He urges him to believe in his own strength and use his power to reverse his life. The student's eyes widen as he considers the possibility of truly changing his life. A newfound resolve begins to form within him, a spark of defiance against his fate. The fighter then asks him again, his voice serious, what is that he truly wants to do? The young man is silent for a moment, his hand clenching into a fist as he finds his answer. And so, he declares that he is sick of his bullies doing whatever they want to him. His mentor watches him, a look of understanding and approval in his eyes. The student's hand tightens, his voice filled with a quiet determination, and he then looks up, his eyes burning with a new fire as he says he wants to punch them, just once. And the fighter laughs, telling his new student that his goal is still pretty modest. He then gives him a fist bump, declaring that they should beat their enemies to a pulp instead. The young man stands in a fighting stance, his expression filled with a newfound determination and resolve. However, his mentor reminds him that his opponent is tough, with exceptional raw talent. He explains that in a normal fight, there is probably no chance of winning, a terrible reality for the student to face. But the fighter has a plan, a single path to victory that could turn the tables. And so, he tells the young man that if he can master one specific technique in a week, he will have a chance of winning. And so with his incredible talent, the student has the potential to make that seemingly impossible feat a reality. 1 week later, the two stand facing each other, ready to put their plan into action and change everything. And so the scene shifts to the school, the clock on the wall showing that it is time for the showdown. A sign on the wall indicates that they are in classroom 3-1, and a student walks down the hallway, their indoor school shoes a stark contrast to the impending violence. Inside the classroom, Sakata and his group are waiting, their usual arrogant expressions on their faces. The powerful student calls out Kamino's name, his voice filled with a cold, menacing tone. He holds up a phone with a cracked screen, a clear reference to their previous encounter. The bully then tells him it is time to change clothes, a cruel and humiliating demand. In a flashback, the group is shown stripping another student down to his underwear in a dark alley. One of the bullies nervously holds up his phone, revealing that he took a video of the incident. And so back in the present, he tells his victim that he is thinking of posting the video on social media with his name on it. And so, he then asks the terrified student what he thinks will happen if he follows through with his threat. The group of bullies stands together, their arrogance radiating as they look down on their victim. Sakata casually enjoys a lollipop, his expression calm and confident as he prepares for the confrontation. Kamino stands before them, holding the phone and asking if the video is supposed to be a threat. He mocks his opponent's tough act, wondering if the homeless man from before gave him some false courage. The powerful student tells him not to get the wrong idea, his voice dripping with condescension. He explains that humans have an inborn status that can never be overturned, even in death. He declares that bottom-tier trash like him should just quietly submit to those with wealth, looks, and power. To emphasize his point, he begins to pour a drink on Kamino's head, just like he did before. But this time, the student calmly walks away, telling his enemy to beat him up and take the phone if he can. The bully who made the threat is left standing there, laughing hysterically at the unexpected defiance. And so his laughter echoes through the classroom, but his leader just stares in stunned silence. And so the student who was threatened is now crying, his tough facade crumbling under the pressure. He tearfully asks his opponent why he can't just fight for himself, his voice full of fear. The entire group of bullies glares at him, their expressions a mix of anger and confusion. Sakata's lollipop stick snaps in his mouth, a clear sign of his rising frustration and rage. A dark, menacing aura surrounds him as he stares down his opponent, his patience clearly at its end. The student begins to tremble, overwhelmed by the terrifying presence of his enemy. But despite his fear, he clenches his fists and declares that he will do it, ready to face the consequences. Back in his room, his mentor asks him what the most advantageous situation in combat is. And so, the fighter explains that it's when you know exactly what your opponent is going to do, a lesson the student is about to apply. His mentor continues the lesson, asking him when an attack becomes the most predictable, and he then demonstrates by throwing a swift punch, explaining that the answer is the very first strike. The fighter holds his fist steady, telling his student that if he can control that initial move, even he can win. The young man's eyes widen as the simple yet profound strategy clicks into place. He finally understands.